I'm just laughing. James Cameron edits?
Oh, he
so it's
edits.
not like 5 hours. Oh, wait, no, hold on.
There are only so many arms you can lose in a James Cameron.
Hi, I'm Teresa. Welcome to our new show on Cocoon Cast, weekend movies and more, where we deep dive into movies and discuss all things cinema.
Hi, I'm Rebecca. Today we'll be discussing on our Retro Rewind the movie Stop Making Sense.
And it's some Hollywood shocking news.
Stop the presses. The strike may be over.
Wow, let's get started.
The band Talking Heads are at the height of their fame in 1983 when they perform at the Pantages Theater. What follows is a concert designed by lead singer and key creative force David Byrne and director Jonathan Demme to be a retrospective of work, new perspectives, and their, at the time, latest music.
Rebecca, we both agreed to see this movie. Tell us why you chose this movie.
I was really excited to see this movie on our voting list because I have never actually seen this movie in full. I've only seen little snippets. Mom's a Talking Heads fan, so I kind of grew up with a little bit of the music. They're also a huge influence in a lot of the music genres that I listen to today, too.
And as we have discussed, I put this forward for our cinema community and also our Cocoon Cast. I remember seeing this movie in 1984 when I was 14. And I saw it twice. I liked it that much. With my cinema community, and a second cinema community followed. I really wanted to take our Cocoon Cast, specifically you, and also your dad is also part of our team, to go see this movie, to see just back in the day, right? When I'm 14, how well has this movie aged? How well has the music aged? And honestly, I wanted to get our entire Cocoon Cast feedback on it, and just knowing that I'm over here going, yeah, it'll be good, it'll be fun. And some things when you're 14, right, you go back and go, I don't know. But I, spoiler alert, really enjoyed it. They had remastered it to the 4K, so it was going to be a little bit better than I recall. It's about the music, it's about their story. And to be clear, it's not a documentary. It's really a concert over the course of 3 days. They had recorded this.
It's pretty seamless. You would almost be forgiven for feeling that this is one big, long concert.
Right, wouldn't that have been something?
And this film frequently, like, I can't open up a film magazine without seeing this at the top of the list, like within the top 5 of concert films.
Yes, and honestly, it strikes me as funny that I was, reading about it and just some of the interviews. I mean, they're making the rounds. Talking Heads are reunited. They're all having conversation now.
They actually want to talk to each other now.
I know. Their breakup was bad. They went through the whole, shrinking the heads, and David Byrne's like, yeah, whatever. I'm just, And I thought it was interesting because he had said some pretty negative things about their initial breakup. And there was an article in the LA Times recently where he said, I regret saying those things. I thought, what a great guy. He's in his 70s and he's reflecting and saying, you know what? I probably didn't need to say those things.
That's a big deal for him because Byrne usually does not walk things like that back.
Well, okay, but we'll talk about that. But let's talk about who is seeing this movie. And I originally thought it would be more me. And, like we always talk about, who's our target audience? Middle-aged, people that remember the Talking Heads. And the reality was, some of the stats I was reading, it said 60% of the movie, 60% of the audience that is seeing this now, the remastered edition, under 35, which falls under your camp, right? Late 20s, not even alive when the movie came out.
Maybe they just had a bunch of parents who like listening to this kind of music.
Well, that's what I'm wondering, if that's what it came out. And the other part that I laughed is, your dad is part of our cinema community and obviously part of our Cocoon Cast, right?
He's definitely
the hot guy in the box. And it said more than half this was the first time they'd ever seen the movie on top of it.
That surprised me.
Given
both
of
the
these surprised
provenance
me.
of this movie in the American Film Lexicon. In fact, I believe the Library of Congress picked this as one of their movies to preserve.
That is correct. That it is there. And David Byrne has since moved on from Talking Heads. He's done all kinds of things. Your movie, everywhere. I can't even say it. Everything, everywhere, all at once.
Got it this time?
That's correct. He actually he had a song in there. It was nominated, which is hilarious. He's just kind of everywhere. And, he's done things with Spike Lee. And So he's moved on. However, the music in my mind was very timeless.
Would you say it's timeless because of the multicultural piece involved with it?
There's definitely a multicultural piece. However, I just found it interesting that millennials, right, of your generation, Gen X, knows David Burns from The Big Suit.
That's iconic. To me, when I always think of David Byrne, I always just think of this very serious guy in a big suit, just kind of staring at his microphone very intently.
Well, but he's pretty talented. He can play multiple instruments. He is kind of a savant, if you will, around music. He's very talented. He's not just the guy in the big suit with the little, flapping that people know him for. And the band members, I love the fact that as they're doing this tour, they're actually talking.
I've heard rumors that some band members won't even talk to him over the phone, that they have to have somebody with them.
I think that has changed. It feels like there's some goodwill at this point, which you always feel kind of sad. I don't know, maybe it's me, but I'm like, oh, the music that I grew up listening to. Oh, the music that I liked. Oh, they hate each other? I mean, it seems...
I have some really bad news for you about the Beatles.
Well, yeah, I know, right? I'm waiting for you to go, John Lennon's dead. But I also think that there was that part around it because the breakup was so messy. At some point, I recall hearing that David Byrne had sued them because they were calling themselves the Shrunken Head. And he's like, you can't do that. So it's just kind of funny because they hadn't appeared together since, 2002?
That was the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame thing that they did, right?
Exactly. That was the last time, and then gone. But to come back for this movie and to promote the movie as a cohesive unit, and it doesn't feel like they're over there going, oh, I hate you, I hate you, I hate you. It's looking back 40 years ago. 40 years. I mean, that was clearly before your time.
So much.
So much. Well, not that much, kid. You're late 20s, though you look not.
Stay out of the sun, eat your veggies,
exactly.
Minimize the sugar.
Let's talk about the movie. If you have never seen the movie before and you don't know the music, and you said you know the music some, what was your take on it?
I thought how interesting it was that it was so minimalist. It was
very much.
It wasn't charmingly minimalist. It was chically minimalist. It's like,
it wasn't charming. Ooh.
Well, it wasn't charming as in, oh, we're doing this to be quirky and it's cute. It's like, no, the music has to be the primary focus here. You and I were laughing that there are several moments where they pull in additional elements and it just becomes funny. It's almost like a gag. It's like, what are they going to bring in next?
Well, and they felt like they were having fun.
Yeah, there's definitely some fourth wall breaking at some points. They're definitely having too much fun.
I was going to say, and you had mentioned that when we saw that, and I thought that the other part that was interesting is they originally had started with limited release on IMAX. They were talking about 2 shows on average, each location, San Francisco, Chicago, Houston. All of a sudden, these dance parties break out. They were saying in Canada they started out, and then now that's what's happening, and it's actually going wide release at this point.
Well, and it was hilarious because when we saw this, it was a Sunday night. Mm-hmm. Almost nobody was in the theater. I mean, nobody. It was literally just our Cocoon Cast team and one random guy.
I was going to say random guy, like front
3
center.
rows in the front.
That is true.
He wanted the experience, clearly. But it was just funny because I thought, well, either there's going to be a bunch of people about Mom's age.
Of course, that's right.
Or there's just be like these random teenagers and like, I don't know, I don't school tomorrow, what are you going to do? But it was just so funny. And then all of a sudden you're like, yeah, there's these dance parties. I'm like, where was that?
Well, and to be clear, it's not because the movie's not doing well. The movie is actually making money. I find it fascinating because their original budget was $1.2 million back in the day, right back in the 80s. And they said they had to borrow that money, so it wasn't like somebody's throwing money at them and saying, hey, we want you to make this movie. And it earned $4.9 million.
You're saying the $4.9 million, that's an initial release, correct? That was the first
run. That was theatrical. So that was before DVDs and, all of this. And I find it fascinating because they have made money at this point. They originally, right, when they were re-releasing it. And at this point, it's hilarious because they're saying the premiere was live stream to over 150 theaters, becoming IMAX's highest grossing live event film. Made 640,000, which is pretty high considering now it's wide release in terms of if we look at our local theaters. I mean, there's several local theaters that we have in our area. They're all playing this, not 2 screenings, but 5, 6 screenings throughout the day, not just weekends. And I know for me, that was one of the things. I'm like, oh, it's only going to be here for a few days. We need to go see it.
No,
we need to
one
go
of my
see
friends
it.
was like, this is only going to be in IMAX for the week. It's going to go to regular format soon. Go see it in IMAX.
It was like the weekend, like boom. And then all of a sudden now it's just exploded.
Which is phenomenal for the heads, I'm sure.
Well, and to go back 40 years and to say people really like this film, it has that cult status-y feel to it. And I would say if you don't know the music,
this is a good primer because it walks you through their career quite nicely.
It does. And it's kind of the greatest hits of the greatest hits.
I'd like to see our cinema community also comment below. Did you see it 40 years ago, or are you more kind of the modern audience seeing this for the first time?
Well, and I would love to hear, are you going to go see it again?
That's a good question, too. I like that question.
Meaning, if you saw it 40 years ago, because I've saw it twice 40 years ago, did I need to see it again?
Did you want to see it again?
And that's it. I definitely did want to go see it again. And the music, I laughed because I know someone in our cinema community said, I said, you didn't grow up listening to this music, maybe you won't know it. You'll probably know 3 songs. And talked to the person afterwards and they said, I kind of knew 1 song and maybe a few of the others, but not really, sort of not. But enjoyed the music. And I always laugh, right? One of their lines is, same as it always was. And I'm like, same as it always was. I enjoyed it. It definitely felt same as it always was. Do we have any questions from the box?
Why do you think this movie has gone to cult classic? Does that surprise you?
I think this movie is a cult classic because the Talking Heads are a new wave band. New wave bands take things from other genres and kind of create their own spin on things. So I think right off the bat, you're going to have kind of the quirk factor.
Oh, there's a quirk factor.
Number 2, this is not a concert film where you have people being interviewed on the side where they talk about the music. This is straightforward. You're sitting in on a Talking Heads concert.
It really was, and it felt like a concert experience to me. I laugh that we're talking cult classics. It still blows my mind, literally, to go, wow, that was 40 years ago you saw this movie, and now you're taking your daughter, and now you're taking your husband who never really listened to Talking Heads, and the word cult classic comes to mind. That just cracks me up. However, I agree with you. I think their music was influential back then, and to see their growth beyond that and how it's affected people, I would say, sure, let's call it a cult classic.
It's also really minimalist. There's not these wild pyrotechnics. There's not these random costume changes, except for one. It's not these things that normally you'd expect in a concert. It's very much the focus is on the music.
Well, and I know the layering of the music, meaning, David Byrne comes out and, with a guitar, and then the layered approach. We were talking about the drums and the keyboards and dun, 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 the bass. And I thought that was creative. And it was. You were able to focus on the music and people dancing even back then. It just says the music will stand on its own without all the fancy. And I was laughing when you said, the pyrotech. I mean, that's today's concert, and those are fun,
but it's a different perspective in terms of visual perspective art.
Rebecca, it is that time of the show. We have 5 moths, and they're dancing and singing this time. They're not just
we got some
around.
Grammy-nominated
moths, and they want to know, where did they land this week?
I think this is a 3.5 for me.
3 and a wing.
3 and a wing for me because I like my concert films to feel a little bit more like a documentary.
Sure.
This didn't scratch that itch as much as I was expecting. It's still an enjoyable performance, and you still get to see like a lot of the little quirks with the band. It's not perfect, even as much as Brian was trying to make it perfect. No water bottles, had to wear the same shirts every time.
Yes.
But you still see some of the band members' personalities shine through.
Rebecca, would you say average Anthony, typical Tina would go see that if they're my age, your age? What do you think?
I think if you're looking at music history in terms of film presentation, this is a watch.
That's a what in the theaters. It's
Definitely
wide
in the
release at this
theaters. I
point.
was impressed by the audio. At one point, I told you I was so focused on the music, I really couldn't hear myself think about like some of the things that was going on. I remember there was like a couple sequences that they did that I was able to kind of mentally breathe, but it was like for like 5-second gaps.
Well, and it wasn't, to be clear, because it was too loud and overwhelming and encompassing. It was engaging.
It was engaging, and the mixing was. I was impressed by the mixing on this.
Yeah, I would agree. So my Moz would land at a 4.
Not surprised.
No, okay. That's why I was laughing. Go, surprise, not surprise. And I would say the original was wonderful. The remastering, how great is that? And I love the fact that music impacts so many things. And we talk about the music a lot with our weekly show about how that impacts us and how that sets the tone and the mood. And it was just fun. I enjoyed going back. Like we said, our Cocoon cast team, we weren't dancing. However, we probably had most of the theater. Maybe we could have got the guy down the front, would have probably danced with us. I would have loved to have gone to that screening. However, based on the time and things like that, I think that did impact the power of that.
I think this is going to be interesting to see because I haven't been to a concert. I probably go to a concert about once or twice a year now.
Yeah.
That was the closest film I've seen to a concert atmosphere.
Correct. And it was not a documentary. It was truly a concert.
Well, and the other thing is, it's interesting that they were able to capture that concert-like feel without showing too much of the audience.
That's true. That is true.
If you enjoyed our review on Stop Making Sense, please like, which helps more viewers find our cinema community, and subscribe so you don't miss our upcoming reviews. And please share with your friends.
Rebecca, it is that time of the show to talk about who we are not sponsored by.
Still not sponsored by anyone?
Still not sponsored. And if somebody were to sponsor us, we might be talking to Men's Warehouse.
It's been a while since I heard that name.
So you know who Men's Warehouse is? You remember this back in the day when you were a kid?
I remember like the pictures where the men are all like, I got a suit.
That's right. Okay, so let's talk about that. So their lead guy, former lead guy, we'll talk about that. So George Zimmer had the little kind of the scruffy beard.
Yeah, we know a lot of guys with scruffy beards.
Yeah, so his tagline was, you buy something you don't like, and he's like, but I guarantee it.
What you will find is the same quality clothes sold in the finest stores for at least 20% less. I guarantee it.
And you'll become a Men's Warehouse customer. I guarantee it. You're going to like the way you look. I guarantee it. You're going to like the way you look. I guarantee it.
That was his claim to fame.
Sounds like a pretty interesting claim to fame there.
Well, it's got him, 1,200 stores, U.S. and Canada also.
Inclusive.
So I'm thinking, okay, George Zimmer, big CEO guy. We went to the same college together. I thought, he is our guy. Reach out to him. You think he wants to sponsor us?
I'm guessing by your response, that's a no.
Well, funny. There's a story. You're thinking, hey, George is going to sponsor us. He loves us. David Burns, king of the big suits, right? George Zimmer, Men's Warehouse, big suits, would love to sponsor us. Well, no.
Darn.
George Zimmer apparently was fired from his own company.
You've all seen the ads where the founder of Men's Warehouse tells the rest of us, we're going to like the way we look in his clothes. Well, this morning he's out of a job, fired from the company he started, but he's not going quietly.
How does that work?
Well, funny you should ask. So in 2013, he, takes a backseat role. They're selling, they're doing all this different stuff. And his board moves him to a different position, right? He becomes executive chairman. Of course, you ask them, you ask him. You ask them, they're like, oh my gosh, he's going a little bit too crazy, a little bit too hands-on. He just wants to still control, even though too much influence on the company, even after he stepped down as CEO.
Yikes.
Yikes. No, George said, no, that's not quite exactly the whole story. I'm, the king of the suit. However, I, capped my salary at a certain point. He was pretty good egg in terms of having this, multi-million-dollar company. He capped his salary. He was donating to his employees, their college funds, their kids' college fund, not even his workers. They didn't like him.
Oof.
So he's out the door. Men's Warehouse ended up selling. Stock prices when they went public, I guess they were like at $58 from $37, so they're bumping up. unfortunately. They dropped back down. So, yeah, so it didn't go well for George. Men's Warehouse just said, no, I don't think so. And we did Dumb Money a few weeks ago talking about the stock price dropping
That
down.
would be an interesting stock to invest in, actually.
George, I don't think is investing. However, even though doesn't want to sponsor us, doesn't want to support Men's Warehouse, doesn't want to help us out here, he super positive, had a great attitude about it, and just said, you know what? Maybe in the future we could do something. However, he's going to be super positive about the whole experience. But guess what?
Still not sponsored.
Still not sponsored this week. If you have seen Stop Making Sense and want to share a review with a friend, but don't want to share the whole show, head over to our companion channel, Cocoon Cast Clips, where we take this show and cut it into bite-sized clips. Perfect when you're short on time or just want to share a snack-sized review with your cinema community.
It's that time of the show where we hear from you. We want to see you standing outside your favorite movie theater with your cinema community. Please send your photo to hello@cocooncast.com. Be sure to tell us who you are and what movie you're going to see so you can show our community your cinema spirit. Now let's talk about some of the cool comments we've been getting. Teresa?
This week, Patria Mexico commented on our short for Stop Making Sense. Here's what they said. I saw the new Stop Making Sense movie a few weeks ago when it came out, and the restored footage was great. I never got to see the original, but as a baby, we had it on DVD, and I always danced around to it, so it was surreal seeing it on the big screens. Check that out. I love it. I'm just thinking, were they dancing in the theater? Like we're talking about all these, dance parties that are breaking out. But I love the fact that it was seen on a smaller screen and it was worth going to the theater to see it, differently. And even as a baby, I just laugh because that tells us, right? We're talking about the audience a little bit younger and growing up listening to music is so great.
It's really cool to me, too, because it's like you want to live that experience again. You want to feel that kind of joy you have when you listen to the music.
Well, and the comment was so great. It just paints the pictures of, what this person is experiencing. It's like, I danced around. It was so real. Just how to experience a movie to go, wow, this was so great. And to take the time. It's music, but it's also part of this person's life. And I just love the fact that they got to see it with the restored footage, in the screening. And that's the part where I love that some of the retro rewinds come back to the movie theater. So you get the opportunity to see it on the big screen if you missed that for whatever reason.
I think especially with like concert films and documentaries, it adds another layer to the viewing experience.
I would agree with that.
There's only so much a home theater can capture in that moment. And I think the cinema experience allows you to create something closer to the real thing or even make it hyper real, as it were.
Absolutely right.
The strike is almost over.
Not over. Not over. Okay, talk. What?
They're off the sidewalks. I know.
Yeah, I know. I see pictures. I laugh because I've seen some articles where the little picket signs are just propped up. So it's like, they're off the sidewalk.
They're off the sidewalk. There is an agreement in place, but it has not been ratified. It still could go sideways.
Oh, no. So they're not done. And who are you reading your information from?
Well, this is the big story, but the article that I'm sourcing for this episode of Cocooncast specifically is from CNN.
Yes.
And it's Samantha DeLuyua.
Oh, my. Okay, Samantha.
I'm sorry if I'm pronouncing your name wrong, Samantha.
I think you may. However,
I may.
the strike is our focus. Let's talk about that.
The discussions that we were talking about last week.
Yes.
They finally finished Tuesday evening and said, this is the
Wow.
agreement that we want to bring forth to our membership.
Correct.
They will be voting in early October.
Wow. Even then, it's not tomorrow.
No, it's not. Hi, sign this. It's like, let's take a look at it.
Okay.
See if we like it. Vote. This does allow writers to return to work, though,
Yes.
which is what I'm really excited about because it allows them to return to work without committing to a deal. And then if they don't like the deal, if something comes up later, they're like, oh, wait, this is kind of weird and crazy. They can say, hey, we reserve the right to change this. Therefore, they might go back on the sidewalk.
That's what I'm laughing. I'm like, well, don't get too comfortable off the sidewalk at this point. And to be clear, SAG-AFTRA
SAG-AFTRA is still on strike, and WGA has openly said that they still support SAG-AFTRA being on strike. However, there's a smaller, nicher strike waiting to hit.
And let's tell our cinema community about that. That just came out this week.
Video game writers are struggling still. This has been a long-standing issue. These guys totally just
I'm not laughing at the strike. It just builds momentum, and you're thinking, oh, maybe we're almost done. And I'm like, no, they're not. They're now the video game industry or the video game writers are on the fence around this.
Because there's also an overlap in membership with that.
Oh, correct. And it's not to say they shouldn't be. It's just, oh my gosh, they're not done.
You can read the details online, but there's a lot of positive news, a lot of anti-AI protections, and a lot of salary bumps for people.
And the writers seem reasonably happy with this. And obviously, you can't speak for each person. However, I think the consensus that I've been reading is they're reasonably happy about moving forward with this.
What I hear is people being heard. To me, that's the
statement.
most important thing in a situation like this is, are both sides being heard? And for me, I'm a little bit more biased towards one side rather than the other.
Sure.
Hint, hint, striking. But I think it's really wonderful to see, even though it took like 3 months.
Oh,
Jeez.
Clearly. Well, and at the time of our recording, it'll change at the time of viewing. I'm just laughing.
You're this close. You're this close to being free from strike
laughing.
coverage.
I'm thinking hashtag don't sell out is what I hear you saying.
That's what I'm saying.
All right. Hashtag don't sell out, people. Do we have any questions from the box?
Should they go back to work before it's signed, or do you think they should wait till it's signed before they go back to work?
Part of me wants to say hold off until it's signed, because you never know what somebody's going to bring up. But at the same time, I'm really happy to see that these writers are allowed to provide for their families.
Well, and that's been your story the whole way, meaning we're not happy that strikes are happening. And, we joke about it a bit here just because the reality is how long is that? And obviously, other actors and actresses have been helping and donating to the cause and been very supportive. However, it's a little sticky.
Bit of a sticky wicket, yeah.
It is, and there is a part of me that just says, do you want to wait? But if they wait, what does that look like? So I don't know.
Well, and I'm also worried that would kind of get the public to turn on them. It's like, all right, already, it's over. That's the problem I've been seeing is the headline is, it's over. It's over. It's like, it's not over. It's not done yet. It's just, we're really close, guys. Come on.
Well, especially with the SAG-AFTRA still on strike. It's not over, and I think there is a PR piece to this.
Totally, especially from the bigger guys.
Oh, of course. They want them to be done, and they don't look like the bad guys. I don't think they're the bad guys. They're just not agreeing to what the needs are of their writers and producers and actors.
Well, and you and I have a little bit different perspectives on that, too.
Sure. Rebecca, let's talk about a little bit lighter Hollywood news. Talk about someone you like a lot.
I do like him a fair amount, I will admit.
All right, back to the Abyss.
Not to be confused with his also really good documentary, Ghosts of the Abyss. James Cameron showed up at Beyond Fest to answer some Q&A about his movie, The Abyss.
And that was featured in Variety.
That was
correct?
featured in Variety. He also revealed that the 4K restoration is almost done.
Let's talk about this, because my understanding was originally he confirmed a 4K restoration, but then there was an addendum at the end of Todd Gilchrist's article in Variety that said it's actually 2K?
The original article reported that the version shown at Beyond Fest was the 4K version. However, it is only the 2K version. That's what the addendum was.
Yeah.
But Cameron has revealed that the 4K edition does exist, that they are going to be inserting some special scenes. So I think that's going to be some of the more deleted scenes that were taken out of the initial theatrical release and also kind of brushed up lightly.
I'm just laughing. James Cameron edits?
Oh, he
so it's
edits.
not like 5 hours. Oh, wait, no, hold on.
There are only so many arms you can lose in a James Cameron movie.
Well, I don't know if I don't know. I think he does. It's like, I would have thought that too. Let's put it that way. In the article, I will say, was interesting. And of course, it's interesting when you use a James Cameron voice as you're reading the article out loud.
I dare you to use your James Cameron voice on camera.
I'm trying to think, how would we do this? Okay. No.
No.
It's not there. No, I have to literally be looking at it, and then the inner James Cameron comes out. But he did. He talked about almost dying twice.
This
And
film
was so
is
dramatic.
notorious for this, actually.
Oh my goodness. He was just, almost died in this movie and twice. And my angel scuba divers saved me. And I'm knocking on, the tanks of people so I don't die. And I almost gasp for breath. I'm like, he's as dramatic as his movies.
Kind of makes sense where it comes from now,
It
doesn't
really does. It's not like, in this great mind of James Cameron, he came up with something that's so unrelated to his life. I'm like, oh my goodness, it's his life. But he has 2 arms. We will notice that James Cameron has 2 arms. And The
Shouldn't be
Ghost of the
laughing at that.
Abyss, I remember we watched that with you when you were younger, and I enjoyed that.
I'm going to say something controversial.
Oh.
That's my favorite movie of his.
Wow. And I would be curious if our cinema community has never seen Ghost of the Abyss. Check it out. Comment below. Let us know what's your favorite James Cameron movie, because clearly you have one.
That is my favorite.
Wow.
And it's especially on my list of documentaries that I recommend to see
It's
people.
a good documentary. I will say I don't typically use favorite and James Cameron in the same sentence. However, I will say I know I like to bash James Cameron and Michael Bay, and I'm sure our cinema community will have thoughts about that. They probably love him.
It's going to be very fun to see you when the next Avatar movie comes out.
Oh yeah, blue people. But this article, I will say, was interesting. It did capture my attention. His stories were interesting enough.
You find the man dying interesting?
He didn't though, but he didn't. he almost died. Had he died, I'd feel bad, clearly, because many people enjoy him, appreciate him a lot. I just kind of like to laugh. Do we have any questions from the box?
Do you think films need recuts like this or restorations, or should we leave Han shooting first?
Oh, wow. Even I got that one.
All right. Well, okay. As a film completionist, I love seeing director's cuts. My favorite version of Blade Runner is a director's cut. The final cut, specifically. They call it that on
They
purpose,
literally
I think.
call it the final cut.
Yes,
Nice.
they specifically call it.
Nice.
I find that there's something interesting when you engage with a director's cut because it allows more time. There's more allowance emotionally and just mentally for things to be created.
Well, and you hear their original intent, because several of the movies we just reviewed stopped making sense. That's a restoration. Did it make it better? Sure, it did. Would I still see the original? Yes. But I think it's interesting. And like I said, as much as I heckle and joke about James Cameron, I will say I think his vision was closer to what he had in mind with the restoration. And I appreciate that he could see the vision and the technology just had not caught up with his vision.
There's some points where I feel like it's gratuitous, i.e. some of George Lucas's choices.
Over my dead body.
Yes, I bet you have.
Oh, yeah.
But if you're using it to tell a story, I think that I don't mind nearly as much.
Okay.
But there's also directors that do this to other films, like Brian De Palma's edit of Psycho. I thought that was kind of an interesting choice when he did that.
Thanks for joining this week. We're always excited to create experiences to bring our cinema community together.
Next week, we're excited to be reviewing Carlos, the documentary, and we might fit in a second new movie, so watch for that notification. And on a Retro Rewind, we'll be revisiting Rattle and Hum.
Woo, Rattle and Hum.
Your favorite band.
Exactly. The pops are popping out. Please remember to like, subscribe, and to share our channel.
If you enjoyed this show, you might want to check out last week where we reviewed the Expendables 4 and also the first Expendables.
Remember, cinema community, movies are
Better together.
Thanks for watching. See you next week.